Hey, this is William Tincup and Ryan Leary, and you're listening to the Use Case or watching the Use Case podcast. I always forget about the YouTube part of this with Adam Gordon, and we're going to learn about poetry. So, Adam, would you do us a favor and introduce yourself?
Yes, certainly. Thanks, guys, for having me. Great to be here. I'm Adam Gordon. I am from Scotland in the United Kingdom, formerly of the European Union. Sadly, and I've been in recruitment since 1999. I was a recruiter for 3 years. After about 2, I realized I never wanted to hear about any candidate's ambitions and life story ever again. So I worked out in year 3 what I actually wanted to do, and I went straight into recruitment marketing because I love all of the bits around how do you get people into the room with you to talk about the job. So I really loved that. So I spent the next 6 years or so in recruitment marketing at an agency called Havas People, and then at PwC before starting my own businesses. And I became much more successful when I was not working for other people. The first business was a talent sourcing company. So we just sold our time for surfing the internet. The second one was a marketing automation technology. So we effectively built a talent acquisition sort of equivalent to Marketo. And over about 5 years, we built that company up. We sold it to iCIMS in 2022. And in the first year that I was in iCIMS for about 10 months. And in the first sort of 6 months of that, I spent a bit of time with the sales enablement team there. And so I became quite familiar with sales enablement and what it's all about. And the purpose for enabling salespeople with all of the right scripts, content assets, calculators, props, objection handling messages, things that they need to go from like first stage outreach right through to closing the deal, onboarding the customer. And there's a heck of a lot of stuff that salespeople need. So while I was going through this process, I was thinking to myself, what is it that we do to enable recruiters? And so when I left iCIMS in January last year, I had a few ideas of things I was interested in doing next, but it was almost certainly going to be building technology which was inspired by sales and marketing. And so I did 6 months of focus groups, just finding out from people, do you how well or otherwise do you enable your recruitment teams? And what I found was probably 80% of people give them an ATS, give them a LinkedIn license, give them an Indeed license, and give them a phone and tell them to start pressing buttons on the phone and get on with it.
Swim on, little minnow. Yeah.
Get on with it.
Basically. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I did 200 hours of focus groups. There was nearly 1,000 people that joined me in that 6 months to tell me what they were doing around that. I set up a YouTube channel called Recruiter Enablement. I interviewed over 150 people for that. And it was people from in-house talent acquisition, people that were filling jobs, through to people who were senior leaders. It was people in RPOs. It was people in staffing companies. It was people in recruitment marketing, in talent sourcing, in talent analytics. It was a whole variety of different people. And yeah, probably 20% of companies had some kind of an initiative on the go. And that was mostly a SharePoint. And that SharePoint had maybe some templates for job adverts, maybe some guidelines for here's the logo you have to use, and here's the boilerplate message for how we describe our company. So probably some learning.
Before you go into the great things, what's wrong with SharePoint? Like, why are you hating on SharePoint?
Hey,
it was working until you came along.
My cousin has a horse and buggy. I ask him the same thing every time. Like, hey, what's wrong with the horse and buggy?
What's wrong with it?
Well, no, I mean, like, compared to the 80% of businesses who were doing nothing, SharePoint was like an oasis.
Good point.
It was wonderful.
I found this place, and it has job descriptions.
Look at these links. Oh my God, the links.
Yeah. It's so brilliant. I can spend 25 minutes trying to find a job advert template in SharePoint when I bury through all of the other crap.
That's 10 years old. Yeah, this totally makes sense. But it doesn't really, I mean, kidding aside, you're not dealing with the objection response stuff that recruiters get from candidates. Or you're not dealing with all
No.
the other assets that they need
No.
to on both sides, both the hiring managers, because they're dealing with both hiring managers on one side and candidates on another. So, okay, what kind of assets do they need to work with hiring managers in the most efficient manner, and then what do they need in terms of candidates? What type of assets do they need in dealing with candidates? Because candidates, like prospects, will ask random questions. They'll ask them all kinds of different things, and if you stutter, just like in sales, if you get to that point, you're like, that's a great question. You've already lost the person. You might get them back, but you've lost them for that moment.
Time kills all deals.
Right.
You tell them you're going to come back to them with an answer to that tomorrow. Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean, there was one company which honestly they did a great job. I took the head of talent attraction. It's a big international business. You both know the company and well-known brand, and they had 120, 130 recruiters in the company, something like that. And the head of talent attraction had put together a SharePoint, which was called the Talent Attraction Hub. And it was launched with great fanfare. And in month 1, they had 90% adoption, 9-0. In month 2, they had 19% adoption.
I was going to go for lower.
Yeah, I mean, it was why? Because it was an unappealing user experience. They didn't enjoy SharePoint.
Sure.
And, I would love Microsoft as a customer, so I'm not going to go hard on SharePoint here.
No.
SharePoint is too basic and not contextualized enough. There were a smaller number of companies that I found who had done a bit of a better job with Confluence or with Notion or maybe with Monday.com, something like that. But, I mean, that was a very small number of organizations that had done something like that. Better than SharePoint, easier to configure into the solution that you need, but it's still building a house with your hands.
Yeah, it's not technology that was built for what talent acquisition and recruiters need.
That's right.
You're making it work for yourself and you're patching it together.
We call it shoehorning, right? You're shoehorning that solution in. And sometimes, we've all tried on shoes where you're just a little bit too big for the shoes, but you still try to make it work. Yeah, this isn't that.
Yeah, I mean, they needed to make it work, to make it really work in Notion or in SharePoint or any of these. You need quasi engineering support to really bend it all into the right position, and then of course things change. And the way that solution was built by people that I had to get in to help me last month, actually, my customers, the recruiters, they need it to be changed to this and to this and to this. So. Yeah,
it's an evolutionary document, an evolutionary system to where people, the more they interact with it, the more they'll probably personalize it to what they need.
Absolutely. But the thing is, and I don't want to say like in recruitment we're special and we need our own thing, right? Every business function thinks they're special and they need their own thing. But like, there are certain things about recruitment which are different from finance teams' needs and the procurement team's needs and the IT team's needs. However, one thing that is clear is that enablement in a corporate environment is not new. It's just new in HR and in particular in recruitment. So sales enablement is been around for some time. DevOps and developer enablement has existed for some time. Sales enablement's existed for some time. DevOps, developer enablement has existed for some time. We're just a bit behind.
Customer enablement.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a smaller business function. We don't have talent acquisition is not a big business function in most organizations, and so we were never going to be the first to get enablement. But here's the thing with so many companies that had 40 recruiters this time last year and have now got 28 recruiters, they're not going back to 40 recruiters, right?
Mhm.
Right.
They might go back to 32 recruiters, but they're not going back to 40. So
they
they
got
are
to learn
going
how to do more with less, no matter what.
Yeah.
So how do people use it right now? What's the give us the use case of how people use poetry? You know, just kind of some of the blocking and tackling parts of poetry right now.
Yeah, so I'll just to like from those focus groups, Mike Hughes, who was my chief technology officer at my last business, Candidate ID, he and I on the 1st of August, we set up a company. On the 10th of October, we launched our MVP. Looking back, it was not ready for the market. We thought it was great because we started with nothing, and
Right.
and 2.5 months later, we had something we thought was great. Our
Push it
baby
out.
was beautiful.
Oh
Let's show the world our baby. Yeah, our baby we had work to do. His hair wasn't growing properly. It was like not quite, you know. So every day since the 10th of October, we have been taking feedback. We've been making it better. Between mid-October and mid-November, we got 270 companies to sign up for a free workspace account, and they've been giving us feedback ever since. We've over the last few months, we've gone into much wider scale programs, pilot programs with enterprise level companies, and they're giving us daily feedback from what would an enterprise TA team that's using Workday, what would they need from this, and
Right.
we're going back to them within a couple of days, having fixed almost everything that they need, to be adapted. So anyway, the way it works is there's when the recruiter logs on, they've got a desktop, and on the desktop there's little squares, Hollywood squares, and the Hollywood squares we call them tiles, and
Right.
each one of these tiles represents a solution. So the solution, you click on the tile and it opens up the solution. There are tiles for 4 different groups: for marketing, recruitment marketing, for operations, for rec ops, for learning, for recruiter learning, and the 4th one is slightly ambiguous. It's tools, which means the other things. So within the marketing area, these are all native solutions that we've developed. The operations area is also all native solutions we've developed. Within learning, we're not trying to develop a social talent or talent sandbox type of here's how to be like improve your performance as a recruiter. That's not what that's about. The solutions so you would add a tile for social talent or talent sandbox or other e-learning type solutions.
Right.
We're not doing that. What we have done is we've put together a solution which has fill in the blanks for the talent acquisition leader or the rec ops person or whatever. Fill in the blanks around here's how we do ATS, here's how we do CRM, here's how we do career site, here's how we do assessment, here's how we do advertising. So it's all the tactical within this particular team. This is our way of doing things. So that's the kind of learning that we're giving. Another one that we're giving in the learning area is what we call research. And so if I'm going to be working on a role, recruiters are often working on roles that they don't really know anything about. If you're in-house, you're working on 30 recs. And so like I normally work on tech, but I've got a treasury manager job to fill. So I'm going to be going and seeing the CFO tomorrow. I can go into the research tile within Poetry and I can click, what's a treasury manager? And automatically it'll explain it for me so that a 10-year-old would understand it. And if
is that AI or ChatGPT that's coming in there?
We've got, So we have, we use a large language model in the background. And what we've done is, so for example, if I'm going to be working on this treasury manager role, there are multiple assets that I'm going to need to work on this role. So there's maybe 8 different bits of information I need about what does this job mean, who hires people like this, what do they get paid, all that type of stuff. I'm then going to need a Boolean string for this. I'm then going to need outreach messaging for this. I'm going to need a social media post. I'm going to need a job description. I'm going to need a job advert. I'm going to need the hiring manager kickoff meeting template. I'm going to need
Right.
candidate interview template. I'm going to need a lot of different things. So we've built what we call a playbook function. And I just click into the playbook and I say treasury manager based in Los Angeles. And within 2 minutes, I'm going to get like 20 plus assets related to that job. We're using a large language model in the background, but we're sending a 5,000 word prompt into that large language model to return back for me exactly what I need as a recruiter. It's in the right tone of voice. It's in bullet points if that's what I want. It's in it's describing on the external facing things. It's describing my company properly. It's all set up so that,
and the brand assets, it's already set up there to where it's using what they want, and they can, I would assume at that point they can edit it in case they need to edit it for whatever reason, and in doing so, the large language model learns what they're editing.
Yeah, I mean that's correct. That's absolutely correct. So on things like, there's a lot of templating you can do at the beginning. So when the admins for that team are coming into Poetry, they go through a self-guided journey. It takes about 15 minutes, and that basically is setting up your workspace. So what is your EVP? What is your career site URL? What is your company's tone of voice? What are the Pantone references for the colors that you want to use in images that are created? Who are your competitors? Why do you stand out against them? All those types of things. And it guides you straight through. Fill all this in. And once you filled it in, it's done so that somebody in the US is getting all of their assets back in US English. Somebody in France is getting all their assets back in French. So it's automatically translating everything into, there's 185 languages that this is going to. So this is one of the things that we've learned from enterprise teams is English isn't sufficient. So there's a lot of different solutions in here, and typically, what a talent acquisition team is currently doing is they are, for the 30 plus solutions that we're offering within this one workspace, they are either using 30 individual solutions to get these tasks done, or they're skipping a lot of the steps and they're not creating what they need to create, or they're spending a long time creating things that Ryan's already created it, but I'm creating it today because I didn't know Ryan's already created it. So
it's a lot of duplicate work, So Adam, a question for you here. We're talking a lot about, obviously, about poetry, but when you're, and I'm assuming this is a simple demo for you to do, right? Recruiters need this, right? So demoing this feels like it would be fairly straightforward and simple. But as you're demoing, when is that moment? What's that feature that you're showing where they're just like, that's what I need right there?
Oh yeah, that's a great one. The aha moment.
Well, there's a few, and they happen at different points. So the first aha moment is the first time that somebody sees the desktop and they see all of the different tiles laid out in a logical order, and including, like, here's my iCIMS, and here's my Beamery, and here's my hiring solved, or whatever it might be. And they can see the tiles for everything that the recruiter needs in the one place. They're like, wow, this is going to stop the number of times that people are posting on Teams, hey, does anybody know where I can find whatever it is? Poetry, fucking poetry, right? Is the answer, right? So they don't need to keep asking.
Tag that fucking poetry is the title of the podcast.
The title.
I mean,
fucking poetry.
That's one of the.
Let me ask a quick question in the demo, because Ryan's onto something, and I don't know if you've tried it yet, but instead of doing a traditional demo, why don't you just onboard them?
Yeah, I mean, we're doing that. I mean,
that is what I'm.
Yeah, I mean that's effectively what we're doing.
You now have an account.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can see what, like, okay, tell me what your EVP is. Okay, good. Is that it? Okay, great. What's your career site? Fantastic. Like, you're literally logging them in and showing them, and then at the end of it, it's like, okay, here's how you use it. Click, 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 click. That's the demo.
Yeah, I mean there is a very large amount of friction in trying
Right.
to sell recruitment technology, and there
Right.
is
Yeah.
even more when you're selling something that they're not familiar with buying.
Right.
And I know this from spending
Yeah.
5 years selling marketing automation technology to TA teams. It's a
Right.
challenge. It's a big
Yeah.
challenge because they don't have a line item in their budget for it. They don't necessarily have the skills automatically to be able to use it.
hmm
And so we were really, we are obsessed about making this product so easy to use that my kids, whose
Yeah.
ages are single digits, if they
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
use it, then a talent acquisition team can use it. But we're doing a few things around selling. So one is we have been doing pilots with large enterprise organizations where they'll bring on 30, 40, 50 of their recruiters. And over a 3 to 6 month period, we're getting
Right.
that weekly feedback from them. And as we're getting that feedback, we are designing the product exactly for what they need. So,
Right.
and when we can go back like the following day and say, hey, that thing you asked for it, go and take a look now.
There it is.
And it's like
Click.
done. They go, wow. So that's one aspect of, I mean, my belief is that if we have 20 companies that come through that process with us between now and the end of the year, I'll be surprised if 10 of those do not sign up for their whole 100, 300 recruiters,
Right.
because they will have loved what they've got from our product so much, partially because of the whole concept of what it's about, and it's better than any process and tool that they've seen before, but also because they will be so happy and confident with the way that we have done what they've asked for,
Right.
that they're like, yeah, I mean, these people will absolutely do what we need.
Yeah.
And we are obsessed about that. We are obsessed about the company
Well,
getting
if
what
you've
they
got to
need
do
straight away.
if you've got to do more with less, you're going to have to find a way to be efficient. That's just kind of life as it is, right? So if we're not going to go back to 40 recruiters, and I don't think we
Right.
are as well, then you're just going to have to find a way to be efficient. And that you making a job description, Ryan making a job description, I'm making a job description, that's just inefficient. So however that gets fixed, that makes sense to me. I did have a question about workflow. Like, where do you, is it you're obviously interacting with the systems that they use, but where do they use you? Do they use you when they at bespoke when they need you,
No,
or is it sitting on top of something? Like, what
no,
does that look
no.
like?
It is their workspace. It's open all the
Got it.
time. It's as important as their applicant tracking system.
Okay.
And why? Because it's solving so many problems. It's addressing so many of the things that they do. And I mean, I said this on LinkedIn or Facebook earlier today. I really, I'll tell you what it was. Somebody had posted that HiBob has launched its applicant tracking system. And I thought, HiBob has I'm sure it's had an applicant tracking system for years. And I'm thinking, but even if that's not the case, then that's an HRIS, I think, which has got
Yeah.
developed an applicant tracking system. Well, you've got chatbots that have developed applicant tracking systems, and you've got advertising products that are developing applicant tracking systems, and you've got a whole load of different technologies that are developing applicant tracking systems. Why? Because the ATS has made itself really vulnerable to people landing on their lawn because they haven't solved enough problems. All they've solved is like, here's how to workflow a vacancy. And they've thought, that's air traffic control for recruitment. It's not. It's air traffic control for the vacancy. And they should have really broadened out their capabilities considerably. And if I'm an applicant tracking system company right now that doesn't have a CRM capability and video capability and assessment capability, I'm really vulnerable to becoming obsolete. People don't really need a great way of managing a vacancy. That's like 20% of what a recruiter does with their day. So
Right.
no, it's open all the time. Poetry's open all the time. It's one of the 3 most important tabs that they have open. They don't just come to it when they need something niche to be done. They're using it all the time. And we are really cognizant of this important thing, which is, and Mike says it all the time. Mike's my CTO, he's my co-founder, and he says it all the time. Nearly every day he says, we're over-indexing our messaging on generative AI. And I'm like, you're absolutely correct. I know that that is true. And the reason that he says this is because the core proposition is about enabling people to find what they need in record time, to
Right.
save time on getting their tasks done, not to create the things that they need, but to find the things that they've already created. Now, the ability to create brilliant new things rapidly, which are on brand and are better written than you can write and that are like look great, that's the sexy bit. You know,
Right.
that's the bit that people go, ooh, that's great. But actually, the most important thing is that I can find that great job ad that Ryan wrote a couple 3 months ago, and that great social media post that William wrote 6 months ago. Being able to retrieve the things that have already been done, that's actually where the biggest savings are made.
So you mentioned something I think that's really important. I want to maybe go back and spend some time on is that managing a vacancy is roughly 20, but I agree with that number. It could be smaller than that. But I think that's important because a lot of people misunderstand the fact that a recruiter is not just working on vacancies. There's an entirely different world where recruiters are spending their time each and every day, and they don't have a system to manage that, right? It's on their desk, it's in a notebook, it's in Notepad, it's in Evernote, it's here, it's there.
Intranet.
Intranet, it's on SharePoint somewhere in a
Written on their
minimized
hand.
tab somewhere, written on the hand. Yeah. In my daughter's case, is all the way up and down their arms and all that crap. Yes, absolutely. So I think that's important. I want to maybe dig in there. Where are they spending? We'll just say it's 20-80, 80-20, right? So they're spending 20% of their time managing vacancies. Where is the other 80% of the recruiter's time? Because I see as you're talking and saying no, when you answered William's question and said no, poetry is open all of the time.
Right.
This is their home. And I've seen organizations use tools like Monday, for example. You've mentioned Monday earlier. That's their truth right there, right? They come in, they open up Monday, they've got their little dashboard, they've got their workspace, they got all of this stuff, and that's it. And if they need to exit out of Monday for a reason, it's generally because they're being kicked out to Google Docs or something to that effect to go grab an asset and bring it back in. So I'm curious to get your take here. Where's that other 80%? Where does poetry sit within that?
So, yeah, I mean, I think that it's probably 40% on attraction. Attraction being a combination of sourcing and marketing related things.
Right.
So 40% on attraction, 20% on managing the vacancy, 20% on stakeholder management, internal meetings, things like that. And the final 20% of that is probably dicking about on LinkedIn.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
doing things that are actually not very productive.
Right.
Sending emails.
Flirting, whatever.
Hey, I just need comments. I'm not flirting.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know exactly. What I do know is from our research, we think we can save an average recruiter 64 minutes per day, and that's based on two specific things that we're attacking in terms of their
And now
time.
that's 64 minutes managing other platforms or keeping them within poetry and streamlining all of that.
It's 64 minutes per day on not having to recreate things that have already been created.
Right.
Got it.
On saving time creating things that would normally take them longer, and on trying to find things. We understand that a recruiter is spending 24 minutes per day trying to find things. I mean, that's over 2 hours a week on just trying to locate a policy or whatever it might be. So, 64 minutes per day. Some of our customers have said they think that's conservative, but that's from research.
I think so too. Yeah, I think that too, because if they're spending the 24 minutes a day looking for things, there's also the 20 minutes post looking for that thing that
That's
they're not
tweak.
focused.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're still
I think
coming back. Yeah.
if you're a technical recruiter that's hiring, let's say Java developers, keep it real simple, and that's your job, that's what you've been doing all along, it's probably less inefficiency in what you do
Yeah.
because you've built the job description,
Yeah.
you know all that stuff. But how many people do we know in the world that are just hiring one position all the time? It's like I can't think of a person.
I mean, there's mega enterprise companies where they've got teams of people that are. I mean, it's normally tech, non-tech, isn't it?
Right, right.
So, however, even in companies like that, there will not be a week that goes past where a recruiter is not hiring something that's new because there are so
Right.
many new jobs getting created.
That's right. That's right.
You know,
So
so yeah,
one of the questions that I have about poetry is, you know, sometimes software sold, and because you know marketing automation really well, uh, early in my career I did work with Eloqua, which was bought
yeah,
by I think
Oracle,
Oracle.
yeah,
And I always told customers, because we did implementations at the time of Eloqua, and I told them, I'm like, listen, no one's going to tell you this, but I will. This is headcount. Yes, the software is going to do all the things that they say it to. In fact, Eloqua in particular was a Cadillac. It had more functionality than
yeah,
people
yeah,
would ever use.
yeah,
But I mean, you're going to need a gal or a guy. You're going to need someone that's skilled and understand on how to use this. And I don't think Candid ID was that way. And I'm pretty sure poetry isn't that way. But who's the admin? Who's the one that actually? Because see, all the recruiters doing what they need to do, and as long as they learn how to use it. But like, who's the person keeping not
yeah,
keeping people between the lines? But how does that happen?
yeah. Good question. And we've been we are another thing we're obsessed with is on. I mean, it links with the whole concept of we want to keep it simple, like as
Right,
little clicks as possible, as little buttons as possible, as little
right,
options for journeys as possible. We have completed version 1 of our self-guided onboarding, and it's a really good experience, but it's going to get better and better. We want anybody in a talent acquisition team to be able to easily use any of the 30 plus native solutions without having to ask anybody else how to do it. There needs to be
Oh, I got a question about that real quick.
yeah,
If someone's never recruited,
yeah.
so they're new to recruiting and they have to learn all this stuff, is there a way in the kind of the onboarding to figure out their experience level? Do we know anything about them, and can we give them different ways to walk through? Maybe
Yeah,
not
so
now, but you know what I'm talking about,
yeah,
right?
yeah, no, I do absolutely, and you know, as I said earlier, my kids' age is both single digits, and if they can use this, it's ready for
Fair,
a brand new recruiter.
right,
What we will be doing is we've got two different experiences, onboarding experiences right now. The first is for admins, and the second is for recruiters or
right,
users. Right, so it's
right,
admins and users. We will have more bespoke onboarding experiences for recruitment marketers and
right.
for employer branding people and for talent sourcing people and that sort of thing. So we will segment it further. We'll keep doing that. There
Got it.
are today admins and users. The users are recruiters. The admins are in a large organization or a smart organization. It's people with an enablement job title. So Rockwell Automation has somebody whose responsibility is enablement. Takeda, the pharmaceutical company, has 3, soon to be 4 people responsible for enablement. Sprout
Hmm.
Social has 2 or 3 people responsible for enablement. This time last year, I think there was about 100 people in corporate TA teams who had an enablement job title. And today, a year later, I think it's 300. So it is a growing discipline, and it's one that companies are more focused on because I think of the pressure to do more with less and the learning that's happened from other business functions that have had enablement people. So it's a growing area, but for most companies which don't have people that are dedicated to enablement, it's probably the people responsible for recruitment marketing and or recruitment operations. So the recruitment operations people will probably look after the governance of how it's used and probably the rollout, and they'll look after all the things around policies and processes and things like that. But there's a very considerable recruitment marketing element to enablement. And so recruitment marketers will be looking after all of the templates around here's the intro for job ads, here's the outro for job ads, here's the tone of voice, here's the way that we do things like the guidelines around images and videos and
Right.
things like that. They'll be the ones who decide, are we going to enable the generative AI or are we not? If we are we going to include video, include images, or for text only? So it's in a team of, and this is one of the reasons why I think we felt like we didn't know who it was for when we knew recruiters needed this, but we didn't know
Right.
specifically who it's for. If I'm going to get really granular with who it's for now, it is companies of 5,000 plus. Well, it's talent acquisition teams of 50 plus who are on Workday in the UK or the USA. And the reason why they're on Workday is because they're probably pretty feature deprived. They're
Right.
probably pretty solution deprived, and we can integrate if needed with Workday, and we can give a team that's on Workday a very, very considerable amount of new solutions within one workspace. And compared to a company that's on maybe iSIMS or something like that, they've probably got some good things already.
Right.
But if you're on one of these ERPs that is being used as an applicant tracking system, there's a lot of things that we can, like, they can get a very, very big boost very quickly.
Let's talk. Let's jump forward a couple of years, and I know that's hard with how quickly things are moving. What does poetry look like in its next couple of iterations?
So it's not going to be doing anything applicant tracking system or CRM or candidates. It's not going to have any candidate functionality whatsoever. Simple truth is our company will probably get bought by a business which does that. And so we don't want to tread in their territory. They do it better than we do. We're not going to get into that. It is 2 years from now, poetry is used by every Fortune 500, FTSE 100 company and every RPO business that's out there. It's the air traffic control for an individual recruiter. Some of the solutions that are in there today are probably made obsolete because that type of solution is not something recruiters need anymore. It's going to be it's going to have a very heavy focus on enabling hiring managers as much as it is on enabling recruiters. And we already have some capability in that area, but it's going to be a lot more of that. On the generative AI side, video is going to be as easy to do as text is today. So we're monitoring all of the developments on that, and we're keeping up to pace with, like, what's happening. OpenAI is what we use.
Yeah.
We're monitoring and making use of all of the other large language models for different things, so that we can continue to keep on trend with what we should be using, because it might not always be OpenAI. They've got a massive head start right now.
Right.
They've got a really massive head start. What we can
But
get
that
from
could change.
Gemini or from Bard is not the same as what we can get from OpenAI at this point. But the way we've architectured our prompt engineering, it's agnostic. It's lift and shift into just switch that one off, switch that other one on. And in fact, we've already got that capability. If a company wants to use Bard instead of OpenAI, it's within the workspace area. It's just switch a shift and they can do that. Nobody has actually. They're
So
all on
you're
OpenAI,
actually
but
giving them the option to make that switch. It's
yeah.
interesting. Okay.
Last question for me is questions that need to be asked from practitioners to you in terms of buying. Like they've never bought recruiter enablement before in any way, shape, or form. What questions should they be asking?
How much does it cost?
Okay.
First user is free for every company. We're doing a few things that are not familiar to the industry that we're in. So
Right.
the first is, they haven't bought recruiter enablement technology before. So we're selling a new type of solution. The second
Right.
thing is they haven't bought something which has got a self-service first model. They're used to people holding their hands and implementing it, maybe
Right.
turning up in their company and doing training sessions and, involving project teams. This is a switch it on, go through the guided journey, and you can start. So, I mean, there's no hidden catch in that. We really are making it as simple as possible. So, that's going to be a challenge for us to communicate.
Right.
First user is free. Second user through to the 1 millionth user is $120 per person per month. So it's $1,400 annually. Team of 10,
Right.
$14,000. Team of 100, $140,000. There's no additional costs. There's no implementation costs. There's no premium pricing. There's no discount for volume.
Right.
And these things all may happen in the future, but at this point, we want to eliminate any elements of, I've got to think about that, and I've got to think about that, and I've got to think about that. No, forget it. It's $120 a month per individual.
Yeah.
Nothing else to think about. If it's too cheap, then I can show you that it works. If it's too expensive, then come back when you can afford it.
Right.
Right.
Right. Right. Not everybody gets a Land Rover. Listen, this has been a wonderful show. Thank you
Sure
so
has.
much for carving out time for us. Absolutely appreciate you, Adam.
Thanks for having
supposed-
me. Yeah.
You're supposed to say
I'm
something.
supposed to respond to you there. And I'm going to. Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
Awkward dismount.
Look,
Great.
you're gonna notice a couple of bits in here where I've probably cut out. That's an advert for Starlink. Okay, that's the truth of Starlink.
It's true heroes, everyday heroes. All right. Thank you again, brother. Appreciate
Thank you. Great to see you. All the best.